and prayer, leadership and prayer. Now, to begin, I want us to start by just reflecting very quickly. And since we're very few, we can just answer these questions in a short discussion before we go into the main part of the lecture. But we have around 4 questions here, and I just want us to reflect on them. Just think about a short answer, maybe 1 minute or not even 1 minute, a few seconds you can answer. Let's look at this first question. Can you briefly reflect on an experience where you personally have seen the power of prayer? Any experience that you've seen the power of prayer? Who would like to share first?
I
Yes.
When I was I mean, we have many experiences as a family, my family, but I remember that when I was young and my sister was born and she was very, very sick and she was going to die, and the doctors said that she was already gonna die, and we spent a night in prayer. We just tarried at home, and the next day they went back to the hospital, and then the blood was restored in her body, and she never went back to the hospital again.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Thank you for sharing that experience. How about Pastor Lee?
Yeah, some days ago, in the quarantine period, I feel that I cannot do anything for others. So in my family worship time, I prayed, please give us the opportunity to help other. And in the evening that day, the person who live in the Riviera, near the Riviera Resort, where I have gone there to perform for the children program.
Mhm.
Yeah, he called me, he sent me the message to help we don't have any first time. I pray again. How can we help them? And the next day, my friend in Australia called me. So his church prepared some fund to help poor people. So
Yes.
he sent the money to me, so I could help the people in the Philippines, the Rivera Resort. So yeah, this is my testimony in
Wonderful,
this
wonderful.
day. Yeah.
How about you, Prof?
Well, let's give
Dr.
chance
Brian.
for Janvier first. Janvier just joined us.
Oh, I didn't even see Janvier on the list. Okay.
Yes.
Welcome, Brother Janvier. I don't know where. I don't see you on my screen, but
Thank you very
good that
much.
you're here. Yes.
Yes, I could not connect, but now I can. Can you come back about the question again, please?
Just a brief experience where you've personally seen the power of prayer. Just any experience that you've had.
Any experience? Okay, that's good. I have many, but let's share.
Just one.
The recent one.
Yes.
I remember recently the church cut my some of the advantages he has given to me to be able to live here in the Philippines, and I was not able to even to go back home, just to withdraw my family, as my wife and my kids have already finished their class requirement. I was about to let them go back home, and I didn't have the ticket for them. I was required like $2,000 for all the family to go back home and just arrived home, they could have employment, everything they needed, because it's about family. Then I didn't have any solution. I called upon the church, and the church said that's not their regard. And the last solution for me, it was to kneel down and to share the issue with God. And I told to God, God, you know, there is a promise for you that will never forsaken the. You are the father of the fatherless. And I don't have a big family, and I want you to fulfill what you promised to the orphans team. And then I told God, I was really faithful. I was really sincere with God, and I was confident with him. And I told him, God, I don't need more than one month for you to perform a miracle, because a little bit later I will have more problems. To make the story very short, God sent people, and two of my sisters living in the USA, they knew the problem, and they sent me the ticket. They sent me, instead of $2,000 as I have requested God, they sent to me $2,500 for the ticket of my kid within 1 week. Within 1 week. Yes. And therefore, it was not enough. It was not enough because I didn't want my wife to go to stay to his parents, because according to my culture, it's not respectful. And I continue ahead asking God, God, you know my character, I want to do something. And then I have shared also that problem to a friend of mine living in Europe. It's an old woman. I told her, Mom, I know maybe you don't have such budget. It's a huge money. Just to let me, just to give to me enough just to satisfy all the need I had for my wife and my family to have new house, just like for 6 months. And therefore, she kept silent, that old mom. She didn't answer about anything. She didn't reply. And within 2 weeks, almost 2.5 weeks, she sent to me, Janvier, can you share with me the full budget about what you need? Because at the time we called me, you sent the message, I didn't have any solution. But I went to see some donors, friends of mine, and they agreed to help you. And I made a budget. They asked me, how much do you need? And I said, I made a budget, a detailed budget about almost $5,000. Within 1 week, I received the amount. And now my family is waiting for the job, everything. And I'm praying for God also to give the job. And I have that promise for my wife to have also a job. So that whatever you may need, if you have faith to God, and also if you are clear to him about your issue, God is still there to fulfill as he was doing in the ancient time. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe Dr. Brian, you have something brief to share? One experience.
You know,
sorry?
When I was small, I got sick, and the whole church in East Indonesia prayed for me. It was a mysterious illness, and in 1 week, I was healed. But recently, we know of a friend in California who got infected by this COVID. Him and his mother. He is a nurse, but he has a problem with his heart. So when we heard about it, the first thing that came to my mind, he was going to die. But many people have been praying for him for the last 2 weeks. And when we knew about it, we saw him with a picture intubated, but with an
Yes.
earphone, still enjoying life at its closing time. But then
Wow.
2 days ago, we saw him without intubation, and he was looking very good. So the
Wow.
power of prayer, really.
Yeah.
Answered prayer.
Yes. I think there's no one else. So
Yeah.
I think all of us can personally testify that prayer has power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prayer has power. Now the next question, anybody can just answer. Who are leaders? Anyone can answer. Who are leaders?
Who are leader?
Yeah, who are leaders? Or maybe give me an example of a leader. What's a lead? What kind of people are leaders?
You can say that everyone is a leader
It's
in
possible.
in general terms.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. How about in our church organization? Who are leaders in our church?
The person who lead others.
Well, that's true. What kind of positions do they have, or what kind of jobs do they have, or ministries do they have?
Pastor, presidents, director of departments,
Yes,
superintendents.
yes, yes. These are leaders, presidents, pastors, secretaries, what's this, administrators. These are leaders.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
Sabbath school directors, even youth directors, AY. These are all leaders. Now, do you think
Yes.
that prayer is important for leaders? And I want to hear everybody say what?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Very important.
Why is it important? Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, it is the breath of the spiritual life of a person.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mm.
Anybody, any other reflection? Why do you think prayer is so important for leaders?
Because even leaders do not know the future.
Uh-huh.
So we don't know actually the destination is where where the destination will be. So we need to follow and be with God's plan. So we have to pray.
Yes, yes, yes. Sister Yvonne, you were saying something.
I think it's the same as what Pastor Lee said. So.
Okay. 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 For the last discussion question, this is a personal question. I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer, but how much time do you think is necessary for a leader to spend in prayer?
Very
If we were to
necessary.
quantify it, how much time? Just this is just an opinion, by the way. I'm not here to dictate anything, but just to have our minds thinking. Especially if we are that leader, how much time do you think it's necessary to spend in prayer?
I think as we have a need to pray, we need to pray. The Holy Spirit Himself is the one to, according to my own experience, sometimes I felt like a need, or people call it a voice. But for me, I define it as a need of praying. I want to pray. I think that's the Holy Spirit.
Yes, and let me even make it more specific, because of course we should be praying all day, but I mean, we can't pray all day on our knees. But how much time do you think, like personal, maybe I should have said personal devotion. How much time do you think? Just a reflection, just to think, just to get our mind thinking before we enter into the other part of the lecture.
The very 15 minutes.
Excuse me?
The very least of time can be 15 minutes.
Okay, the least of time, 15 minutes. Okay, that's a nice thought. Any other thought?
For me, it's not that.
Brother Lee?
Oh, yeah. I think I must play until my heart is fully leaded by the Holy Spirit.
Okay, Pastor.
Yeah, for me personally, it is more than 1 hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor Lee. How about Pastor Janvier?
For me, it's depend on times. Sometimes I can even pray and I don't feel like I need to continue praying. It's like I don't have the power of praying and I stop it. And other times I can even spend the whole night praying. It's always depend. Yeah.
So depending on what the situation, I'm not here to say how much time, but there was a saying. It was some have said that Martin Luther said this, said a statement that went something like this: that he usually spends 1 day praying. I mean, sorry, 1 hour praying in the morning, except on his busy days. And on his busy days, he spends 2 hours. I don't know if that's really a true quote, but I've heard people say it, that Martin Luther said that. So imagine, on his normal days, he spends 1 hour, but on his busy days, he spends 2 hours. So just to get our minds thinking, and now we can go into, thank you for the comments and for the suggestions, also for the testimonies. I believe we were blessed, and I believe that we all with confidence can say that prayer is powerful, it brings results, it works, and that leaders definitely need praying. And now we're going to enter into the discussion now. Now, let's see. Right, it's not moving. 1 minute. Okay, yeah. Christian leadership is a praying leadership. So we're going to be looking at Christian leadership and prayer. And as you all mentioned, anyone can be a leader, and especially we're going to be dealing with especially leadership in God's church. And leadership in God's church, it goes all the way from being a youth leader right up to being a leader of the general conference, in whatever capacity, in whatever form. There are many leaders in the church, and leaders need to pray, and we need to pray. Now, the first thing that we can see about praying and leadership is that the path of those who are placed as leaders is not an easy path. And I'm sure Dr. Brian understands this very well. Because, by the way, us students, we're here, and some of us are wondering, oh, what's going to happen in this situation? But, as administrators, it's much more challenging for them, because maybe we're only concerned about our family or our immediate present. But here we can find out the leaders, the administrators, they're concerned about an entire campus. And the same thing in a church. When you're just a member sitting down, you may or may not be concerned, but when you're a pastor, you're concerned about the entire congregation, or in whatever capacity, you are concerned with many more than just your immediate sphere of people. So that path is not an easy path. If you remember Moses, when Moses was called, when God said he wants Moses to lead the people out, Moses said no. He tried his best to escape that. Why do you think? Well, I believe because Moses knew what it entailed leading 2 million rebellious Israelites out of Egypt. Imagine, around 2 million people led out of Egypt, and only 2 were faithful. Only 2 were. So the path of a leader is not an easy path. It's not an easy path. And, even it's not easy, but leaders are to see in every difficulty a call for prayer, or a call to prayer. What does it mean? It means, for example, you're a leader in whatever capacity, whether it be a church pastor, or whether it be a district leader or a youth leader, or whatever, and all of a sudden some difficulty comes. When difficulties come, there are many tendencies. There are some people who tend to what? There's a tendency to blame. Oh, this problem is because of this. Oh, this problem is because of her. Oh, this problem is because of him. There's another tendency to be afraid. Oh no, how can I deal with this problem? Oh, it's too much. There's a tendency to also just do nothing. Oh, there's a problem. Oh, let it fix itself. Who cares? These are tendencies. But for the Christian leader in every difficulty, it's a call for us to pray. That means as soon as the difficulty arises, that's when we need to begin prayer. That's when we need to bring prayer. And I like this quotation that we find from Ellen White. She says like this concerning leaders. You know, so long as he remains consecrated, the man whom God has endowed with discernment and ability will not be eager for high position, nor seek to rule or control. Instead of striving for supremacy, a true leader will pray for an understanding heart to discern between good and evil. Now let's take this thing apart now. Meaning, as long as a leader, as long as someone who is leading in any capacity remains consecrated to God, and if they remain consecrated, number one, they're not going to be looking for a high position. We see this in the life of Moses. Imagine, Moses is being offered to be the leader of a great nation. Moses says, no, 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 I don't want this. Even if you remember in the book of Daniel, when Belshazzar was offering Daniel to become the third leader of the kingdom, Daniel said, nah, keep your gifts for yourself. Keep your things for yourself. You know, he's not eager. A true leader is not seeking the high position. And neither is the true leader seeking to rule or control. But a true leader seeks to pray for an understanding heart to discern what is good and what is evil. And I think one of the great examples that we see in the Bible of this is who? Solomon. Of course, Solomon has his mistakes, but imagine God comes to Solomon in the middle of the night. And Solomon, he says, oh, Solomon, what do you want? Imagine now, put yourself in Solomon's position. You're a leader. So you ask what you want. Oh, what you will say? Oh, yes, never lose my job. Let me never lose my. There's so many things that we could false or maybe not so good leader. So one, not seeking position. Leaders, true leaders, don't seek for to be lifted up. Look at Christ. Christ is the leader of all, the leader of angels in heaven, the leader of everything, the king of the universe, and yet still he humbles himself. Even when they tried to make him a king, he escaped from it. And Christ, of course, is our example. And as much as Christ is so powerful, he never forces anyone to follow him. He doesn't rule with an iron fist, but he was a man of prayer, as we will also see as we continue. Now, leaders should never, ever fail for communicating or consulting with the great source of all wisdom. That means that we leaders have to always be looking and in communication with God. They have to always keep themselves connected with God. And, you know, strengthened and enlightened by the master worker, they will be enabled to stand firm against unholy influences and discern from right and wrong and good and evil. You know, this is what we can understand. When we connect ourselves with God, when we have a strong relationship with God, number one, we can keep ourselves from the unholy influences that are always coming towards us. And we will be able to understand what is right, wrong, which is good, evil, what should be done, and what should not be done. You know, this is something that doesn't come naturally. It's not something that comes because of our ability, because as we know, we do have a lot of leaders in this world, and they are making a lot of decisions. And one of the reasons why the decisions that they make many times are not good is because they're not connected with God. If we're not connected with God, our decisions will not be good. And we'll not be able to discern right from wrong as well. So we need to have that constant communication with God. Now, the leaders will approve what God approves, and will strive earnestly against the introduction of wrong principles into his cause. Meaning that, you see, when we are connected with God, you know, we will only approve what God says to approve. Because you know, many people have different ideas. Some ideas may be good, but there are some ideas that God are completely against God. And a true leader will never ever approve something that God has not approved first. Like for example, we know that there are lots of hot issues that are coming up, especially in today's time, in today's society. You know, I thank God that church not seen. But even like for example, it was in this year, a little bit before the COVID outbreak came, or whatever that pandemic started. The Methodist Church, they were going to have their GC session just like us, but the main hot topic for them was their stand on LGBT marriage. Some of them are saying, "Oh, we have to approve this. We have to allow gay ministers, allow gay church members and gay." And then the others are saying, "No, no, there's." They will introduction of wrong principles into his cause, meaning that they will strive at all costs to keep wrong principles out of the church of God, to make sure that the principles that are being promoted, being taught, being practiced are aligned with what God has laid out for us in the scripture. So that's the first thing that we can see. And you know what we can see is in connection with what I said, is that Christian leadership is in touch with God, meaning that there's going to have to be what? A close connection with God. Now, here, Ellen White says like this: those engaged in the work of God cannot serve his cause acceptably unless they make the best use of the religious privileges that they enjoy. Now, as leaders in God's house, there are privileges that we have, and some of those privileges we don't realize it. But you know, for example, before this COVID, we didn't realize that we had lots of privileges, like we were able to freely move around, we were able to freely talk with people, we were easily able to what? To mingle, to give out tracts, to preach in the open space. We had those privileges, but now those privileges we can see are somehow being reduced. And just like that, leaders have privileges. And whatever privileges leaders have, we have to make the best use of those privileges. Because, you know, we're not supposed to think like, oh, since I'm a leader, I have a good salary, I have nice per diem, I have all of these things. We can just use that to indulge in our own selfish desires. No, every privilege that we have as leaders, we have to use them to the best way possible. And especially the religious privileges. That means the privilege that we have of teaching the people, the privilege that we have of speaking on behalf of God, the privilege that we have of ministering. These privileges have to be used the best way, the